Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, all the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Hi folks, Cesar back again. Thank you for joining us. Again, very important topic tonight. We're talking about some gun safety measures that the governor here in Virginia is taking on, along with a few allies in the Senate. One of those allies is joining us tonight, Senator Barbara Favola. She represents Virginia's 31st Senate District. And prior to being our senator, she spent 14 years in the Arlington County Board. She is a tireless worker. I see her everywhere talking about all the things they're getting done. And last year, between the bills she wrote on education and the environment and transportation, she managed to get the Senate to pass a bill on domestic violence and firearms. Senator Favola, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Cesar. I'm so glad you're taking on this important topic.
It's got to be done.
Oh, absolutely.
Tell us about it.
Well, last year I put a gun safety bill in, which essentially would have removed a firearm from a domestic violence abuser who had been convicted, not accused, but convicted on misdemeanor accounts related to stalking or sexual assault and battery of a household member.
This is not someone using harsh language. This is a criminal.
This is a criminal. Okay. And it's really important to note that researchers across the country, and we had some key researchers at the University of Virginia tell us that domestic violence always escalates.
Sure.
So somebody who's a stalker today, or a sexual assault person who's doing sexual assaults today, later will become far more dangerous. Sure. And actually put the victim at risk, sure. Serious risk. And the governor just came forward with a proposal, which I think is very comprehensive. And even in the governor's proposal, there's an important fact that's noted. In cases where domestic violence occurs and a firearm is available, the victim, which for the most part is a woman, has a 500% greater chance of being shot or a homicide taking place, which I think is, the statistics are there.
Senator,
these are people who are violent.
You'll have to help me understand this. This is pretty. What's the argument to why not do this?
Well, there's this very contorted purist view that you should not, take guns away at all from anybody because it is a Second Amendment right.
Don't you lose certain rights if you've been convicted of crimes?
Well, that's what we're arguing. Okay. You're acting very rationally. We're saying that with rights come responsibilities.
Absolutely.
And what about the right you just mentioned of, families and neighborhoods to remain safe? What about, the rights of women in their households to not be attacked? What about, there are things that have to be balanced, and the General Assembly right now, unfortunately, is using a litmus test approach to making laws, and it is extraordinarily dangerous.
So again, give me an example of an argument. Let's reverse roles. I'm you. I'm trying to convince someone on the other side that this makes sense. What are they saying?
Well, it's particularly problematic in the House of Delegates. Most of those seats are very safe. So when you go before the Courts of Justice Committee in the House of Delegates, you're talking to a number of people from very safe Republican districts.
Sure.
And their view is if they waver at all on this sort of gun rights position, they'll be primaried by somebody to the far right.
But it's not a binary issue. This is we're talking about a segment of a population that's been convicted.
That's right. My view is that the folks that I had to appear before on the Courts of Justice Committee didn't care about representing their constituents. They were more concerned about keeping a very small faction, Tea Party faction, satisfied. So there was no dialogue. In fact, I was not given an opportunity to present my case. And I brought speakers with me that day. Your previous guest, Michael Doucette, was there. He represented the State Commonwealth Attorneys Association. I had the Chiefs of Police, the State Association of Chiefs of Police, the State Association of Sheriffs, a number of women advocate groups. And they were not allowed to stand up and make a statement. They could only stand up and say what group they represented. So it was a very challenging situation. And, this is, in my mind, is a public safety issue. Sure. And you should not be walking away from it. When you have law enforcement so solidly behind a proposal like this, it is worthy of serious consideration. So I'm hoping the governor's proposals really get a serious review, and he's got 3 proposals that I think really are the cornerstones of his agenda. One is he wants universal background checks, which
seems reasonable.
And he wants to close the gun show loophole, which again seems reasonable. His second proposal is very much like my bill I put in last year, dealing with those who were convicted of misdemeanor sexual assault type crimes. So we're going to try to go at that again. And of course, he wants to go back to the limit that we had in place for some 20 plus years that the Republicans, voted out 2 sessions ago, 1 handgun a month limit. We want to go back to that.
Real quick on that note. 12 guns a year, a handgun a year is not enough.
Why wouldn't that be enough?
Where are people putting these guns? What are they doing with them? I mean, I would like someone to explain it to me, because
it's very problematic when you have people who don't think buying 1 handgun a month is not enough. It's very problematic.
I'm not suggesting in any way we take guns away from anyone. And you should be able to buy whatever guns but...
No, right. We're just trying to, again, put something in context. Remember, Virginia has been noted for being the gun-running state.
Do we know where the guns came from that were used to shoot the police officers in Brooklyn yet? Do we know that?
I don't know that for a fact, so I don't want to give you misinformation.
We'll have our folks look into that, but I would be mortified if those guns came from Virginia.
Yeah, I would be too, and it would be very shameful. I do want to note that one area I am working on in the domestic violence realm has to do with children, and children who have observed domestic violence really need to have counseling. They have witnessed a very traumatic situation. Many of them internalize it. They have a very difficult time sort of adjusting to what we would consider a more normal environment. And again, we want to prevent domestic violence. That would be our goal as a society. So I asked the Crime Commission last year to study the opportunity to establish a grant program encouraging local governments and nonprofits to actually provide counseling to children. How's that being received? Well, I'm putting in another budget amendment. It wasn't received as well as I would have liked. And Fairfax and other jurisdictions in Northern Virginia, and I hope in other parts of the state, are making it possible for the children who've witnessed domestic violence to go into counseling, but it's not as routine or robust a program, and it's not statewide. And I just think it absolutely is critically important if we're going to, break this cycle and make a difference in the lives of the next generation.
Are your initiatives going through the Senate, do you think?
Well, last year I did get some Republican votes for my bill. It did pass the Senate, and I had Democrats, all Democrats voted for it, and 9 Republicans voted yes, 6 voted no, and 5 walked off the floor. So we considered that to be actually a success. Then it went to the House. So I don't see the dynamic changing. Unfortunately, and 2015 is an election year, so again, politicians are going to go back to playing to their base and worrying about their intra-party fights and all that. So unfortunately, I don't see the dynamic changing, but I would hope that interest groups and others who care about this issue can start working on the ground in these jurisdictions where lawmakers are refusing to even give a honest hearing to my bill and to similar bills.
Did it not even get to the General Assembly floor?
The House, no, we didn't get to the House floor. No, it didn't. And Marcus Simon, Delegate Marcus Simon, patroned the bill in the House, and he worked very hard. And we really did hit a brick wall. So I think this is an example of why we need to change how we're currently drawing these lines, these district lines.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, we've got to elect representatives who are willing to actually represent their constituents.
Yeah.
So
it's an issue I've talked about for 20 years. So every 10 years we get to deal with it, but it seems like nothing really gets accomplished. And it's becoming more and more entrenched in terms of the views.
It seems to be more polarizing than it has been in the past, and well, I don't want to say everybody, but some of the key players in the House are taking a page from the Washington page book, which is unfortunate. But we need good people to fight. You have a great program. You're doing your due diligence, getting this issue aired, and
what can the folks out there do? What else can they do? I mean.
Well, I think if the average person is really willing to pick up the phone and tell their lawmaker that, this matters to me, and pay attention, and domestic violence is a real issue, and taking guns away from, perpetrators, especially those who have been convicted, it is a good thing. I want you to do this, and we need to set up a system where we can go statewide and really delve into these districts where the lawmakers are simply ignoring the wish of their constituents.
Is Governor McAuliffe going to keep fighting this?
I think he is. I mean, he's in the job for the right reasons, and he was, to his credit, he was very upfront about his agenda when he ran for governor.
Sure. Yeah, he still won.
And he believes, folks knew what they were getting when they voted for him, and he is committed to moving forward. And he believes he has an obligation to make his state safer, and that is a big element behind his agenda.
Well, that's a big job because, again, Virginia is known, as you said, as this conduit of things going through. So, Senator, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Cesar.
Folks, you've just heard from one of the prime folks involved in the fight here to get this gun safety measure through the House. We'll be right back. Again, very serious topic this evening. Thanks for joining. We'll be right back.